She was sold for $1, but he paid for her with his past. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The girl had not eaten in 2 days. Her lips were cracked, her eyes red from dust and fear, her wrists tied with rough hemp rope that burned her skin every time she moved. The sun over Dodge City was cruel that summer, turning everything into a furnace. Even the air seemed to hiss with judgment. She sat on the back of a wooden wagon in front of the stockyard, where a small crowd gathered, men in sweat-stained shirts and women pretending not to look too long. The auctioneer was loud and fast, a man who had sold everything from cattle to coffins. Today he was selling something else entirely. "Found her near the trail," he said, voice echoing off the pens. "No papers. Don't know where she's from. One of them runaways, maybe. But she's strong enough for work." The laughter that followed was like dry grass catching flame. She stared at the ground, willing herself invisible. She didn't know who she was to them, what name they'd give her. Just that every eye felt like a hand. $1 to start, the auctioneer said. "Who'll give me one?" The crowd shifted. No one wanted to start it. Not out loud. Not till a man in a dust-gray coat stepped forward. He looked older, his face cut deep with years and sun. He didn't say much. Just pulled a single silver coin from his pocket and let it ring against the barrel top. $1, he said. His voice was steady, plain, but it carried. The auctioneer smirked. "That all you'll pay, mister?" "That's what you said," the man replied. $1. A few chuckles, a few mutters, but the coin gleamed there and no one else spoke. The auctioneer shrugged, spat, and hit the barrel with his gavel. "Sold." The girl didn't look up, even when the man untied her wrists himself. His hands were rough but careful. He said nothing as he helped her down. When the auctioneer asked for her mark, the man didn't let her speak. Instead, he took a folded paper from his saddlebag and told the auctioneer to sign it. "What's that for?" the man asked. "Proof," said the buyer, "so no one says I took what I bought." He made the auctioneer write his name, the girl's description, the amount, $1. Then he tucked it away. He led her toward his horse, slow and deliberate. "What's your name?" he asked quietly once they were clear of the crowd. She hesitated. "Don't remember," he nodded. "Then we'll start with silence." And they walked out into the heat, the noise of the auction fading behind them. The man's name was Boone Carter. He owned a small ranch west of the Cimarron, though he spoke of it like a burden. They rode in silence most of the day, the wagon creaking behind the horse, the girl sitting beside him. Every few miles, Boone would glance at her wrist to make sure the ropes hadn't left blood. He handed her a canteen. "Drink slow," he said. She did, eyes darting like a cornered doe. As the sun fell, the air cooled and the smell of sage drifted in. They camped by a small river that looked like glass in the dim light. Boone gathered wood, whittling a bit of cedar as the fire grew. The girl sat across from him, knees pulled to her chest. "You can eat," he said, offering hard bread and salt pork. She nodded and took it, hands shaking slightly. He didn't watch her long, just stared into the fire, carving slow, clean lines in the wood. When she finally spoke, it was so quiet he almost missed it. "Why'd you buy me?" He looked up from the fire. "Because someone had to stop them from selling you." She didn't answer. Her eyes shone faintly in the firelight, but not from tears, something else. Confusion, maybe, or the faintest flicker of trust. The second night, Boone built camp early near a bend in the river. The girl washed in the shallows, her hands red from the cold water. When she looked at her reflection, she barely recognized the face. Dirt-streaked, hair-tangled, eyes hollow but alive. Boone boiled coffee over the coals. "You gotta have a name," he said finally. "Can't keep saying girl." She looked up, uncertain. "Call me Mira," he nodded. "Mira it is." It sounded like a name made of something fragile but real. After dinner, he pulled out the folded paper from his coat and placed it by the firelight. "This here's proof," he said. "If anyone comes asking, they'll see it's legal. You're under my protection until you want to go your own way." She frowned. "So I belong to you?" "No," Boone said. "You belong to yourself. I just paid the toll to keep them off you." That night, as coyotes cried somewhere in the distance, Mira rolled the word proof around in her head like a smooth stone. They reached Boone's ranch after 4 days. It sat low against the horizon, a stretch of dry pasture, one barn, and a small house built from sun-bleached boards. Boone didn't say much when they arrived. He just showed her the well, the shed, and where the wildflowers still grew near the back fence. "You can sleep in the spare room," he said. "Ain't much, but it's clean." She nodded, eyes tracing the horizon. The quiet scared her more than the crowd had. Over the next week, she learned to feed the chickens, gather kindling, mend a tear in Boone's shirt. He never asked questions. Sometimes she caught him staring toward the hills, his jaw tight as if remembering something heavy. One night after supper, she asked, "Was there someone before me?" Boone set his cup down. "There was a wife," he said. "She died some years back, fever. And no one after?" He shook his head. "Didn't seem right to bring anyone into what's left of me." She didn't press. But later, when he sat outside whittling by lantern light, she stood in the doorway, feeling a strange steadiness in the way his knife moved, shaping something out of nothing. It was near sunset when the riders came. 2 of them wearing badges that caught the light. Boone saw them first, their dust rising like smoke. They said they were deputies from Dodge, looking for a runaway who'd been legally sold. Their tone made the word sound rotten. Boone stood firm by the fence. "Got the paper here," he said, holding it out. The taller deputy took it, scanning it slowly. His lip curled. "Signed by Rollins? That crook don't own a thing, much less a person." "Then he shouldn't have sold her," Boone said. The second deputy dismounted, glancing toward the house. Mira stood in the doorway again, eyes cold. "That her?" he asked. Boone's voice went low. "She's not your concern," the deputy smiled. "We'll see about that." They left without another word, but Boone knew it wasn't over. That night he checked his rifle and loaded a second one for her. "Ever shot before?" he asked. She hesitated. "Once." "Good. Keep it close." In the silence that followed, the fire crackled and the sound of cicadas filled the dark. They came before dawn. Mira heard the horses first, the faint rhythm of hooves on hard dirt. Boone was already up, sitting by the fire with his rifle across his knees. He didn't look surprised. "Stay low," he said. Gunfire cracked from the barn, tearing through the morning. Boone returned fire, each shot careful and measured. Mira crawled to the side window, heart pounding. One of the deputies was down, the other crouched behind a trough. Boone's horse screamed as a bullet grazed its flank. When the deputy stood to fire again, Mira lifted the rifle, braced against the wall, and pulled the trigger. The sound rang through her bones. The man fell back, his gun tumbling from his hand. Silence came heavy and sharp. Only the wind moved. Boone rose slowly, checking the bodies, his face carved in stone. "You did what you had to," he said quietly. Mira's hands trembled, but not from fear. Something inside her had shifted. A week later, a U.S. Marshal rode in. Word of the ambush had reached town, and the paper Boone carried had found its way to a judge's desk. The Marshal read the document carefully, tracing the shaky signature of Rollins with his thumb. "This here proves your case," he said. "That sale was no better than theft. The men who ran it will hang up their badges for good." Boone nodded but said nothing. The Marshal turned to Mira. "You're free, miss. Entirely." She met his eyes. "I was never anything else." The Marshal smiled faintly. "Then you'll do fine." He left them with a tip of his hat. Boone stood there a long moment, the paper in his hand. Then he tore it once, twice, and tossed it into the fire. Mira watched the ashes drift upward like black snow. They buried the deputies near the back hill under a lone cedar. Boone marked the graves with small stones. Afterward, Mira saddled the chestnut mare Boone had been keeping for her. She'd brushed its coat till it shone. "You planning to go?" he asked. She smiled a little. "Planning to live." Boone looked toward the horizon, the same place he'd watched every sunset for years. "World's still mean," he said. "So am I if I need to be." She swung into the saddle with practiced ease. "You coming?" He hesitated, then picked up his hat. "Guess I am." They rode out slow, the land stretching endless and open before them. By evening, they reached the ridge above the Cimarron. Below, the river ran like silver glass, turning the sky's last light into a ribbon of fire. Boone dismounted, watching the water. "You could go anywhere now," he said. "I know," she said softly. "But I'd rather not go alone." He looked at her, seeing something new in her face, not fear, Not pity, but choice. As night settled, they camped under the stars, the coin that started it all resting quietly in Boone's palm. He turned it once, twice, then flicked it into the river. Mira smiled. What was that for? Old debts, he said. Figured it was time to pay the last of them. The current carried it away, and with it the weight of everything that had come before. Some prices aren't paid in money, but in the lives they buy back.